I am Victoria L. Burson. This is Leadership on the Go. For the unknown, but it is tapping into the unknown prepared. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Leadership on the Go. Happy Valentine's weekend and happy Super Bowl Sunday. Listen, we are in for a treat with tonight's show. We only gonna be here for 1 hour, but we are in for a wonderful treat from two awesome, powerful, leading women in this country. And so without further ado, we just gonna get started. It is season 4. It is our first show of the season, and we have some amazing shows coming your way. Please let us know where you are hailing from. Wherever you are, just put it in the chat box so that we can see. Even in the replay, let us know where you are watching from. I already see somebody from Houston, Texas. So thank you so much for being present. And listen, we're going to go ahead and get started with our show. Let me introduce our first guest. She is an amazing person. Her name is Tangela Jones Bond. She hails from Houston, Texas. Let me give you just a little bit snippet about her, and then she's going to come on and tell you who she is herself. So she is Tangela Bond, and she is in project management and business development. Tangela is a conscientious leader who exudes credibility, commitment, and determination. She brings 20 plus years of experience in business development, sales, and marketing, as well as project management across diverse industries. Oh my goodness. She is anchored by professional excellence. She is anchored, y'all hear that? By professional excellence and integrity. Her dedication to results-oriented strategic initiatives coupled with her passion for building relationships is the driver for her personal and professional success. Listen, let me tell you, her mantra is providing the platinum experience through excellence and integrity. Come on through, Tangela, and let the people see who you are.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm listening to that, thinking to myself, I want to meet her. You know, we hear stuff, and I don't think we always see ourselves through the same lens as others may see us. So I was like, I didn't know y'all were talking about me, but hey, everybody.
All right. Listen, why don't you give the people 30 to 40 seconds of what you're doing now, and tell us a little bit. I know I said a little bit, add some more to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with your audience today. It is such a delight. Again, as Ms. Vicky said, I am Tangela Bond, and I'm a relationship builder. That's what I do. I build relationships, and I develop people. I develop businesses. I develop projects. I have several lines by which I do that through project management, real estate, and also in business development as a whole. I'm currently serving as a leader for a creative firm, Robot Creative, where I was recently promoted as their business development manager. And I'm excited to be here. Lots of things happening, lots of avenues for success in the future. So welcome to you all that are in the audience, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our next guest, another bad sister, and her name is Charlotte Shaw. Yes, this is a bad. Charlotte and I go back way, like some years, and personally. So let me give you a little bit about Charlotte. Charlotte's from Atlanta, but she is hailing right now from Birmingham, Alabama. Yes, she's doing the doggone thing. Charlotte Shaw is the Deputy Director of Capital and Special Projects from the Mayor's Office in Birmingham, Alabama. And so let me tell you, let me read this. Miss Charlotte Shaw has held various senior leadership roles throughout her career for over 25 years. In her latest role, she has been appointed by the mayor of Birmingham. Y'all heard that? She was appointed by the mayor of Birmingham as the deputy director of special projects and facilities, overseeing the city's largest transit project in the world. She has decades of leadership experience in transit operations, capital improvement, planning and program management, construction, and technology. Prior to her appointment, the Birmingham BRT was on the verge of being terminated by the FTA. Under her leadership, the BRT is back in good standing with the FTA. She has been affectionately known, y'all listen to this, affectionately known. Charlotte has been affectionately known as the savior of BRT. Come on through, Charlotte. Let the people see you and let's have a conversation. Come on and tell us about you a little bit, if you will.
Oh, wow. I'm like Tangela, man. What an introduction. So I guess I should update you on my newest role. Uh,
Okay.
I am no longer the deputy director at the mayor's office in Birmingham. I am now the CEO of the Birmingham Jefferson County Transit Authority.
All
And so
right. That's
the
even
public,
better.
yeah, God is
Congratulations.
good. God
That's
is good. That's
awesome.
the public transportation system in Birmingham, Alabama. So, like Tangela, I have a serious background in public and private. Worked in project management. My area expertise was construction, construction contracts management, project management. Worked for Oracle for 4 years and found out early on in my career that I wanted to be a leader. So I took advantage of a lot of those opportunities that led me to where I am today. So I'm glad to be on the show. Looking forward to it, and good to see you, Victoria.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, I am so excited that both of you decided to do this for us and for the world today. When the replay happens, we know again that it's Valentine's weekend and it's Super Bowl Sunday. Charlotte is itching in her seat right now because it is Super Bowl Sunday, and Tangela itching because it is Valentine's weekend. I'm just saying. So well, we're gonna go ahead and do the doggone thing anyway. So thank you for
Yeah.
being present here on Leadership on the Go. Season 4 is really, really about showing the world various leaders from all walks of life, not just having to see people in a church setting or a corporate setting all the time, but normal people who are in leadership but still doing the doggone thing, and some of the things it took and the sacrifices and the compromises that we had to make in leadership. So this is going to be a real conversation for all
Yeah.
leaders out there about how we get there, how do we reimagine leadership, what it takes, and all of the good stuff. And here's some of their testimonies of good and indifferent, if you will, about because like Tangela told me in one of our conversations, the struggle is real.
Yes, it is.
The struggle is real. So let's get started with our first question. Being a leader who is led by your passion, as we know, passion leads to purpose. How has leadership created a purpose for you? And how do you align your personal and professional strategies with your purpose? So, again, how has leadership created purpose for you? And how do you align your personal and your professional strategies, if you will, with your purpose? And we're going to start with Tangela.
All right, that's a great question. Thank you, Victoria. So let me see if I can tackle both of them, tackle them separately. So, how is leadership created or helped create my purpose for me? So, I grew up in the church. So, I think I grew up with a path for spiritual, churchy leadership, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it helped me define my purpose until I really had to start dealing
Yeah.
with people as I got a little bit older. And as the old folk used to tell us, just keep living. I think I grew up a little bit with a little bit more of a padding around me. And then when I got into the real world, if you will, and I got to dealing with people, and that spiritual response was not always the first thing that was coming out of my mouth,
Yeah.
I realized that I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this leadership thing. And so I think it's always been innate to me. But in terms of helping me to define my purpose, I realized that I love people. And I love building relationships. And so as I began to matriculate through my career, and opportunities were there for me to coach and develop people and help people to become the very best that they could be. I think that's the part that drove me to my purpose, because I'm a lifetime learner and I'm a firm believer of always improving, that you never stop learning, you keep growing. Things are not challenges, if you will, but they are opportunities. And so when I began about your reach. I remember John Maxwell once saying that leadership is influence. And what I wanted to be able to do is to influence and impact people in a way that was greater. So I think that's probably the biggest component of leadership that has pushed me to my purpose. And then I want you to repeat the second part of that so I can make sure I'm answering it correctly.
No problem. No problem. And so thank you for that first part of it. But that
Sure.
second part, I think you kind of answered, how do you
Okay.
align your personal
Sure.
and your professional strategy with your purpose? Right?
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, that's actually what I was trying to say with that. So thank you, Holy Spirit, for giving that to me. That is how I align that, because I like to develop people both personally and professionally. One of the things I do that I did mention is that I'm launching a business called Boss Queen, and it's specifically for educating, empowering, and equipping women. So looking at developing leaders both internally in my corporate setting, but also taking that and trying to develop women as a whole to be able to be the best that they could very be, is how I began to align those things both professionally and personally.
I love it. I love it. You starting a business. Did y'all hear it? Boss Queen. I get it.
Boss
That fits you
Queen.
too. That fits you. What did you say?
That's right, Boss Queen.
Yeah. Y'all, that really fits her. I just want to say that really fits her. Charlotte, come on. Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, no, I think I got it. And
Uh-huh.
actually, I didn't, I actually didn't know I was a leader until
Mm.
probably the last 10 years, right? Because when I
Mm.
started, and even as a child, I know now that I had leadership qualities because I used to have a little lemonade stand outside of my front door, when I was in the neighborhood. So I've always done things, and I was the first one to, try to rally the group to go be militants against the curriculum of the classroom, even in elementary school. So I've always noticed that I was different. And then being different, that wasn't always accepted though by my childhood friends and by my peers in my neighborhood, because I knew that I was thinking about things that other people wasn't at the time. And I see
Mm.
that most leaders, you really think about things that most people don't even think about. And so as I was growing up, I realized that something was different in me. And I said, wow, I want to be at the head of this thing. I had a passionate to learn. I had a passionate curiosity. I wanted to know how stuff worked. I wanted to know why people made decisions. And that was just unusual for a kid to think that way. And so as I started to get a little older, then people became, there were people who were in my life who recognized that there was something leadership about me, or that I had leadership skills. And so they started to speak that in my life, and even in my previous jobs, motivating them to work with me in some capacity, even if I was learning from them. I was still in a leadership role. I recognized learning from them to help me be who I am and where I am today. And so over the years, recognizing those qualities, I started to eventually walk in that role. And as I was walking in that role, I realized I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be that person who made those decisions on my corporate job. I wanted to be the person who decided what got strategized and what didn't, because I didn't always agree with the strategy of my leaders. And so for me to be in a position
Yes.
to create something, I knew I had to be in a leadership role. But to get there, that was the difficult piece. But to get there, I recognized I had to be consistent throughout my whole life, my personal life and my corporate life. I didn't want to be someone at home who I wasn't at work.
Yes.
But then there's a way you have to respond at work that you don't necessarily respond at home. So it was difficult, but I created those qualities that I wanted to be from watching other leaders. And then I recognized that my purpose was driven by my leadership.
That's good. Both of you. That's
Yeah.
real good. Charlotte, I like how you said that you had to discover that you were a leader. And
Yeah.
so there's two schools of thoughts. And I'm on one side that everyone is born a leader. We just
Hmm.
lead from different levels. We lead from the top. Some of us are called to lead from the top. Some of us are called to lead in the middle. And some at the bottom who say, I don't like to, I want to be behind the scenes. But it's
Yeah.
still a form of leadership because, like Tangela said, that, a quote from John Maxwell, that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. But I would like to add, it's also about adaptability. And so, in order to be this leader of it, because we all have the ability to influence someone, but we all got to discover how to be adaptable to be the leader that we're called to be. This is
Yeah.
excellence. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, thank you for that. And thank you for, so let's move on. So, we know that since you guys talked about purpose and how it led you to your passionate leadership, we know that purpose takes us out of our comfort zone, right? Right. And so, in doing so, can you tell us of a time when you have been stretched beyond your comfort zone? How have you handled it? what were some of the most challenging things that came up for you personally and professionally? And what were some of the greatest opportunities? I know that's a mouthful, but I don't mind repeating it when you need me to. But let's just start off with,
You got
can
you
you
got to
tell us?
break some of those questions up for.
I, listen. It's a mouthful, but listen. I told you if you just give me a second, I was gonna say I'm gonna break it up for you, and we can just move with the flow of the question because many of the questions are going to have more than one
Yeah, yeah.
question. So let's start with the time that you were stretched beyond your level of comfort, and how did you handle it? Let's just deal with that. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, Tangela, you want to go?
Go ahead, Charlotte. Go ahead.
Well, I can think of a lot of times I've been stretched, but I think if early on in my corporate career, I remember that wanting to learn more and do more, and then I work in a predominantly male field, and at that time it was a predominantly white male field. Now things have progressed more, and they have evolved more in the years. But when I started as a young girl, because I'm in the baby boomer age, so you can imagine what that age might be. I'm not going to tell you though, but you can imagine.
Yeah.
But when I came through, there was not a lot of black leaders. There was not a lot of black people in the field that I was in. So I was often disregarded, isolated. And so I remember one day when I started this, I was a young girl and I started this role. And this guy used to make me, he used to ask me to go make copies, right? And so I was thinking like, damn, that's tough for me. I'm not the person who go make copies. I want to be at the table, and what the hell he making me, asking me about copies. Well, then I figured out that if I make the copies, I can always make two, one
Mm.
for him and one for me.
All right.
So that when we went to the meetings, before we would go to the meetings, I would memorize my copies of the
Mm.
things that I would copy from that copy machine. So I was stretched in one way to go to really extend myself past my ego and figure out that this guy was very smart, and he was somebody that I could learn from. But while he was trying to degrade me, I used that event differently than what he intended it to be. And so when I got into the meetings and he couldn't answer the question, I would answer the questions because I had to memorize the copies so that I could be part of the game. And
Mm. I
so,
love it.
when I'm stretched, I recognize, use that as an opportunity
Yes,
for your
yes,
benefit. And true leaders will do that. You
yes.
won't come out of your emotional self. And although I wanted to come out of my emotional self now, I wanted to tell him, I'm not your copier girl, okay? But when I recognized that I could utilize that event for my benefit. And I did, because doing that, someone recognized me answering the questions and I got my first break.
I
That
think Charlotte stole my answer. I feel some kind of way. I'm not letting Charlotte go. And next time I'm gonna say mine first because y'all gonna think I'm making it up. But I tell you, I think Charlotte stole my answer.
Go ahead,
well,
Tangela. Tell us about yours. Yeah, we probably had very similar experiences, right?
Charlotte just stole my answer. What you said is spot on, and I identify with your experience in more ways than, and I think many female leaders, especially African American leaders, can identify with that experience because when we go into a setting, particularly in a white male dominated setting, it's you got to be 5 times better. It's not twice or three. You got to see 10 steps down the road and then 10 steps down that road in order to get a seat at the table and to earn respect. But I love what you said because I felt that so much. Trying to have a seat at the table and having to prove yourself and
Yes.
having to
Yes.
overcome those stereotypes and using that as motivation to move forward. I in my earlier careers, I experienced something very similar to that on many occasions. And in addition to that, not only was I was being diminished, if you will, for being a female, for being African American, but also I was in a very patriarchal
That's right.
culture as well. So it added an even extra layer on there that was just a little bit different than the regular. So it was almost like even if you are at a positional level, it's not an equal counterpart to someone that's at that same positional level that is a male, because why are you speaking when I'm the male, and at the end of the day, I should have the final say so. And
That's right.
so I can relate to so many of those situations. I've been in very similar ones, and I love what you said, because a leader will find the opportunity in what others perceive as a challenge. There's a
That's
lady that
right.
I follow, and she says something that resonates with me very often. She says, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And when you can begin to shift your mind to say, okay, what is happening? And then how can I benefit from what's happening, instead of getting caught up in the emotion of it? Because if you get caught up in the emotion of it, you
That's
are not
right.
going to go very far. That's
That's
the
right.
adaptability portion. We spend a lot of time as leaders talking about the EQ, because I think that's one of the single biggest, most important, if not most critical factors of being a leader, is managing your emotions and
Absolutely.
learning how to, because you're dealing with people. And as you alluded to, I did say the struggle is real, but it's always real when you're dealing with people, because they come with their different personalities, their baggage, everything that's going on with, just like we do. But being able to manage the emotion and then look at the situation and determine, how can this benefit me? What is the lesson I can learn here? Then how can I take this to propel myself to the next level? I think that is the true mark of that leadership being defined. So thank
That's
you for
true.
that.
Progression. That's right.
Thank you so
Good,
much.
Tangible.
Yes,
Great.
both of you, you've already answered all four parts of the question, and I appreciate that. See, I knew you could do it, but I love how you guys are this whole notion about extending past the emotion, extending past. Charlotte, you said extending past the ego. If you could learn how to extend past the
Oh, yeah.
ego, leaders, we have to do that. Listen, you saw an opportunity rather than a challenge on the copier machine, right? You
Yeah.
saw opportunity, and a lot of times people see opportunities as a threat rather than something that he can move into. And so we
Yeah.
have to see opportunity as a way to shift into the next, what's next for us, right? And not as a challenge. I like Eckhart Tolle when he talks about better and worse go hand in hand. Opportunities and challenges go hand in hand, but our mindset as leaders only focus on the negative all the time, and that's when the emotional arises. So I'm glad that both of you really spoke to that. So listen, in talking about this whole comfort zone thing, I want to take the time. So you really got to put your listening ears on, you two, because I want to read something. And talking about this whole notion of comfort zone, this little book right here, I love this book, right? And it's the little black book of success, laws of leadership for black women. And they talk about not having the mammy consciousness. Hear what I'm saying? Because I think you guys kind of alluded to it as well. Not having this whole notion of a mammy consciousness, if you will, not being the office mammy. And so I want to read from an insert from page 15. So if you guys can bear with me, um, listen to this real quick. It says, strong black women. We hear the phrase all the time. Actually, I did a show on it. But that concept can be a double edged sword. From a cultural standpoint, many of us assume a role, having to intervene into family situations where there's conflict or take on financial responsibilities for a relative whose economic resources are limited. This reality, compounded with the stereotypical image of a black woman as mammy, or a self sacrificing black woman who takes care of those around her, can easily shift us into the caregiver role. As a result, extending this behavior from our families and churches and communities becomes a key failure if you transfer this attitude to the office, not to be confused with being willing to do what others want, or refusing to do a task because it's not your job, or rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty, because leaders' job is to get things done, like both of you alluded to. This is about not volunteering to become the mother hen or servant of your department. And it says, instead of becoming the resident caregiver, we should establish ourselves as resident specialists with expertise in specific areas. And so And it also talks about this whole cultural code, and I'm not gonna read any of that, but I want to put the bullets that they have here. As Black women, you already have the right to be there. If you don't put yourself first, you can't help others. No one can be a superwoman at all times. Everything is not your responsibility, and you can never change what you allow yourself to tolerate. Ooh, I love it. So, the other question I have is, how has crossing over into other cultural norms manifested for you? Let me just start there. That's the first part of the question. How has crossing over, I mean, you guys both talked about working into a predominantly white male patriarchal system, right? So how has crossing over into cultural norms manifested for you, and how have you stepped, well, let me go ahead and read this. How have you at times stepped unconsciously into a mammy role or caregiver role? Because I know I have a whole lot.
Wow. Wow.
Whoever wants to go first.
Ooh, that's something right
Yes.
there. You
Yeah,
touched on something.
and I guess we all have. I never thought about it like that, but when
Mhm.
I think back in my career, I probably have used some of those cross cultural norms from my family into my business career, and I'm gonna get that book actually. So after this session, I'd like for you to send me a copy of that. I mean, send me the
Hmm.
name of it because I like
It's
to
a
read
great
that a
book.
little
It's
bit
a great
more.
book.
But when especially in corporate America, you take on many roles, right? And it's going to change and it's going to vary depending on what department you're in, depending on who you work for, depending on what your responsibility levels are. And so early on, I knew that I wanted to grow in leadership. I knew that one day I wanted to be an executive. I just didn't know. I knew I had a dream, but I had to work for that dream in some way. And I am a big person. I'm a big family person too, but I come from a very large family. And so
Yes.
we've had to politic, in large families, and there's nine of us, five boys, four girls, and we've had to, I've had to politic as the youngest always, kind of politic my way to the top, get something what I want from the middle. So I've learned how to negotiate from my family in a positive way, and then do that same thing in a positive way in the corporate setting. But I guess I also learned how to be the youngest child and have to care for folks on some level, and then do that in my career. Now, the only thing about doing it in corporate America, it can come back to bite you. You can try to caretake for someone, and I had to learn this early on, that and I guess in some ways I might have been taking that mammy role where I wanted to save somebody like I would in my family. But in the corporate setting, you can't do that as well. You got to be very careful. And don't think that there won't be people to cut your throat there. Just
Yeah.
because you're serving
Come
them
on.
does not
Come on.
mean that they're going to be nice to you or they're not going to backstab you. So what I've learned to watch people's actions, but most of all, you know, really decide what I want from that person, or from what I want from that situation, or what I want to gain in shares from me being involved in that corporate setting that way.
Right.
So I
Right.
guess you got to determine what it is that what you're looking for, what do you want the outcome to be, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself the best way in those events, right?
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I agree with that, Charlotte. Very much so. I was raised being a caretaker, and having a mother that it was injured in a car accident, has been a quadriplegic all of my life, and also raising a son that has a neuromuscular disorder that's in the wheelchair. I've been a caretaker, so I have that natural affinity toward caretaker that I had to be mindful of. But I think more than anything, I was putting that up even more so in the workplace because I was trying to combat the other stereotype that's also often associated with us as the angry Black woman all the time. And because I stand at 6 feet tall, oftentimes coming into a room at 6 feet tall and already having this stigma, I naturally withheld myself a little bit so that I could assimilate a little bit more. So that and I took on a little bit more of that caretaker role so I could assimilate. And then one day, something very profound happened to me. My supervisor at the time got really, really sick. And she was so sick, she could not even get up off the floor in her office. And I looked up, I didn't notice that she was ill at the time, but I saw people just walking past her office, like almost they could have stepped over her if she was in the middle of the floor. And I watched this woman serve until she couldn't serve anymore. She was always the first to get there, always the last to leave, always to say yes to the project. And when she got to her darkest time, there was nobody there to support her. And not only that, they moved in to move someone into her position so quickly. I mean, it was like a blink of an eye. And so for me, that was my aha moment. It's like, okay, Tangela, you need to really define what is it that you're trying to accomplish and set those parameters within yourself, and then use that wonderful B word. It's not the one that they're trying to call you, it's the word boundary. No
right.
is not a bad word.
That's
And
right.
it is okay to set boundaries. And before I get off of this point, one of the last things I want to say is that in terms of setting boundaries, what I had to learn is that I have to use my time as the highest and best use. You can always
Mhm.
make more money, but you can't make more time. And I can't be burnt out taking on a role that belongs to
Mm.
someone else. And so if somebody else can do it, somebody else should be doing. I should only be focusing my time on those things that are most important that only I can do. And so once I realized that, in my leadership role, it made myself a little uncomfortable and it made others around me uncomfortable. But ultimately, it achieved the desired role in my leadership trajectory.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you very much. And so I'm going to have to push these questions in, and so we're going to have to really push because it's almost that time, that bewitching hour. I got several questions I still have to ask, but I do like how Tangela, you talked about, you would rather make more time than make more money, right? And how important that is. But I like how both of you, it is natural for the Black woman to be a caretaker. That's who we are. And if I was to put on my womanist hat, in academic settings, we are always the caretaker of everybody. And we have
Yeah.
raised everybody's children, even the white patriarchal families. We have raised your children. But I can get what the little black book of success is talking about, that we have to be careful not to take that person in the office so much to that's all others see is you
Right.
are able to take care of people,
Yeah.
because it hinders on
Sure.
promotions because they want to see
Sure.
you take care of the office and not climb the ladder, right? and
Hmm.
so and
Hmm.
so it's like a double-edged sword.
They don't want to
That
lose their mammy.
right, but we have to change the trajectory around that. And so thank you for answering those questions. So as we move on, I want both of you, if you could just tell me in a very, very concise way, how have you evolved around failure and pain? Because we know that leadership costs. We would be ignorant to think that, yeah, leadership is influence. Yeah, you got to have the adaptability. And yeah, you have to be conscientious about leadership and upward. But how have you managed in your trajectory of leadership failure and pain, right? Because a lot of times when people don't know how to manage, leaders, we're talking, don't know how to manage, no matter what level of leadership, their failure and their pain. And so we get back to the emotion. So if you could briefly share, both of you could share, or one of you could share, of how do we manage, or how should leaders, and how have you evolved around failure and pain?
Well, that's a good question. And, where I have obviously had some failures. I mean, you don't get to a certain level in life, and especially a CEO of a company, and not have experienced failures, right?
Right.
And so, but how do I identify failures? Well, maybe getting something resolved that I wanted to get resolved, that it didn't happen, or maybe getting a job that I really wanted that I didn't get, or maybe I had to do something other than what I wanted to do before I got to this level. And so I've had a lot of disappointments, but in those disappointments, I stopped a long time looking at them as good or bad, right? So now I look at events and I look at circumstances. What does this event mean for me? Whereas when I look at it as a good situation, I'm always having to live up to that. If I look at it as a bad situation, I'm always feeling a certain way or bad about what I decided or what happened. And so for me, I look at it now. What's this circumstance, or what is this event telling me? And that's what led me to the new position I have. I stopped taking on the good and bad a long time ago, and now I look at Victoria. I keep my eye focused on what I need to do to get to what I want to do. And
Mm.
Yeah.
so stay
Yeah.
focused. Remember that all things are always going to happen, and I learned this from one of my mentors a long time ago. Stuff is going to happen. Recognize that you're going to have friends that pass. You're going to have deaths in your family. You're going to have great events and new relationships, new marriages. All these wonderful things are consistent in life, up or down. So the main thing for me was to make sure that I kept a sense of a pride in me, a sense of self-value, and a sense of a way to just manage my life
Mm-hmm.
and not worry about the stuff that's going up and down in my life, but just kind of deal with it as it come and make decisions from that and make good judgments. If you make good judgments, you don't have to worry about anything else. If you make bad judgments, you got to worry about everything.
So, with that being said, before you go, Tangela, I want you to respond to this question. Thank you, Charlotte. You are so right about that and making good judgments. And again, we get to that whole notion of things happen at the same time simultaneously. When the events, the events that are catastrophic in our worlds, there's still a good side to that event, and there is a different side or a bad side. But your mindset has to be in the middle and focused, like you said. So, thank
Look
you
at
for
the
that.
event. That's right.
Yes, look at the event. Look at life as an event. I like that.
As
I
the
like
event.
that.
Yeah.
I like that. So Tangela, so in dealing with this pain, we realize pain never produces change, right? But it does produce the knowledge to produce change. What are some of the ways in which the pain you experience produce the ability for you to change? And how do you teach that to our leaders who are listening right now?
Yeah. So you're right. Like it doesn't automatically produce it. It gives you data. It gives you the information, the knowledge, if you will, and then you determine what to do with that. And so I think for me, the biggest thing is understanding that there are things I can control, things I can't control. What I definitely can't control are other people, and I can't control life events. But I can always, always, always control my response to them. That is
Right.
100% within my
That's right.
role. And I think once I accepted that reality, it automatically not I don't want to say automatically, but it began the shift from a life is happening to me to I have some control in what's going on in this. It's not that victim
Mhm.
mentality, oh,
That's right.
something happened and now I got to be this way. I always have a choice. I can always look at the event and choose to respond a different way. And how I choose to do that, it's not, we're not always going to make the right choice every time, but a couple of things I do. One, I always, always believe that everything happens for a reason, good, bad, or ugly. I am thankful for the closed doors as equally as I'm thankful for the open doors. I just believe that in my spirit. It has been part of my life, and I will continue to believe that, if the Lord says the same until I die. And then the other component is that is equipping myself with tools. I think sometimes we spend so much time being reactive when we can be equipped to deal
Mm,
with some things. Now, we may not always respond accordingly, but I think what's in us is going to come out of us. And so if we practice tools to help us manage life stressors, and when the stressors come, they don't take us quite as by surprise. We might have a little bit downtime, but I think we have the
Yeah.
tools available to be able to bounce back up. And so if we begin the habit of things like gratitude, I'm a firm believer in having coaches and mentors in your life. Do not be trying to find somebody when you're in the middle of a crisis. Already have people in place that you can contact, you can reach out to when you're in the thick of things to be able to help you answer through those. So various tools in place, tools for relaxation, tools for mindfulness, all of these things in place as part of your lifestyle because we know these life-changing events are going to happen, right? We know pain is inevitable. And
That's right.
so how we process that pain, if we could just be prepared with some tools and just keep that mind state that everything truly is happening for a reason, I think we'll be much more successful in the way that we process these things.
And
I
and Victoria, let me say
yeah,
this:
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
failure is a stepping stone.
Yes, it
I was
is.
Absolutely.
offered I was offered to go to Birmingham 4 times
Mm.
before I took it. But
Come
let me
on,
tell
tell it.
you why I
Tell a
took it the
testimony.
fourth time. The fourth time I took it because in my role, my chief brought in a subordinate of mine, somebody who was working under my leadership, and went around me and no longer went to me. And so when I had the opportunity for Birmingham, first I had one person send me the job. I said, no, I don't want to go to Birmingham. Had another person send me a job. No, I don't want to move to Birmingham. Third time, I don't want to move to Birmingham. But it wasn't until I was uncomfortable
Yes.
where my
Mm.
a leader
Yes.
made me uncomfortable on a
Yes.
job that I knew that I was doing and qualified for, but because I was not his flavor,
Hmm.
he no longer recognized me and went around me and
Yes.
disregarded me. But I had an opportunity, I had a bird in the nest,
Hmm.
and I took that opportunity. And in 2 years, I went from a deputy director to now a chief executive officer. So failure is not always bad. Being uncomfortable is not bad.
Yes.
Sometimes it is what catapults you to the
Right.
next level of your life, and you cannot be afraid to take the opportunity.
Now,
Absolutely.
I know you want to move on to another
But
question, but
no, we're gonna be led by the Spirit. So go ahead. Go
can
ahead.
we
Go
sit here
ahead.
for just a second, because I'm so glad that you shared that, Charlotte. When you said pain can be uncomfortable, it definitely can be uncomfortable, and it is what propels us. I'm reminded of a very similar situation that I recently came through myself when I was furloughed from a role where I was a leader, and it was a sweep across the board. Almost all of our leadership team was furloughed, and it was done from an emotional decision, that was acknowledged by the person who did it, the main leader, and not from a logical decision. But you know what happened with that situation? I had been at that company for a long time, and I was comfortable. And
Mm,
as a result of being furloughed, not knowing how I'm going to move
that's
forward
right.
to the next level, plans all disrupted, was in the middle of trying to buy a house. With
Mm,
the Linda letter in my hand, trying to
come
buy a
on.
house, and all of a sudden I don't have a job. That was uncomfortable for me. But you know what ended up happening? I got a better opportunity at another firm. That other firm ended up, that furloughed me, came back because they realized I didn't have anybody to do my role, and offered me the position again on my terms. And I said, well, now I'll take a contract and you're going to have to pay me higher for it. And then it also freed me up to step into my other role. And so as a result of that furlough, by the end of the year, my income was triple
Yeah,
what
Mm.
it was
say
the
that.
year before as
Yeah,
a result of that furlough. It was
Listen,
uncomfortable, but
I'm
I could
I
have stayed there and
I
made that comfortable income. But as a
that's right.
result, I went to a whole nother income bracket because of that uncomfortable pain. Because it was like, you know what? I accept the closed doors. If the door's closed, that means something else is better out there
That's
for me,
right.
and let me embrace that.
That's right.
Listen, I am glad you guys are talking about this whole notion. Listen, you all out there who are watching and who will watch the replay. Failure is a stepping
It
stone.
is.
It is a opportunity for your what's next. You've been
Yes,
praying to God and to the Spirit and to whatever to get your next breakthrough, and it's right in front of your face on your
right.
person, but you won't use what's already around you because we're
That's
looking
right.
for something different. And so, in most of the time, it's through failure, pain, and that uncomfortableness that
Yes.
we experience
That's
are
right.
what's next. And I like how you said, Tangela, don't be reactive, get equipped.
Because
Don't
it's
be
coming.
reactive. Yes, yes,
That's right.
yes.
It's
Listen,
coming.
listen. This is blessing me. This is blessing me. I really, really appreciate that. So I am going to move to the next one because I love the responses that I'm getting from both of you. So listen, whoever wants to answer this one, conscious and cognitive leadership says nothing is fixed or guaranteed. Uncertainty happens every day. You just said that. Given the climate in which we reside in as progressive leaders right now, what would you suggest to other leaders who are trying to trend forward? This is what this whole show is about. Now trending forward to live and lead in the spirit of uncertainty.
Mm,
I think if I had to jump in on that, my biggest response to that is to just be authentic. I
Mm-hmm.
think there is nothing that can, the climate will change, the people will change, the environment will change, your position will change. But who you are, you have to go to bed with that person and wake up with that person every day. Be who you are. For me, my motto in both my personal and professional life is the platinum experience through excellence and integrity. And that's what's important to me, excellence and integrity. And so if I can bring that to any situation, whether they like it or not, whether I'm their flavor or not, whether it works or not, I can go to bed peacefully because I am operating in my true self, my authentic self, who I am. years ago, I used to be a professional model, and I used to always have challenges because my hips was a little bit bigger than the requirement, right? And so during the time that I was
You a
modeling,
black woman.
it, I was trying to tell them that, but that is not the flavor that they wanted at the time. It was a much more of a waif, very very thin woman flavor. And I remember after I retired from modeling and I began teaching modeling for a while, I used to tell my students all the time, be who you are. The industry will come back around to you. And
Yes,
so 20 years ago, it was the thin ones, and girls were trying to have ribs removed so that they could be so thin to be able to fit this. And now, if you don't have a booty, they don't even want you. And so the industry came back around to now curvy is what's in. And so, in other words, stop trying to conform to what other people think you ought to be. If you can just be comfortable in who you are and walk in your truth and authenticity, then I think that would be my best advice to give to anybody that's trying to navigate this current environment.
absolutely, absolutely. You want to move on, or you got something to say, Charlotte?
No, well said. I think Tangela, that was well said. And then just identify what you want, and then
Absolutely.
identify a person who's doing it, and follow
Yes.
the lead. Whether it's
Yes.
reading their books,
Yes.
or whether it's just kind of mimicking some of the things that they may be doing. But first of all, we got to identify what we really want.
Yes.
When I identified that I wanted to be a leader, I worked toward that goal.
Sure.
And so work toward your goals, and don't be afraid to work toward those goals no matter where it leads you, because it's going to lead you to that goal, but it's just getting there is going to be difficult.
Yes.
But it's a good
Absolutely.
difficult. It's a good difficult, because I look back on my career now, and I realize everything that I went through was to get me to this purpose that I have right now. And see, I thought
Absolutely.
I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, Victoria, I worked for years trying to be an entrepreneur, but I was working out of my purpose. And once I
Absolutely.
identified the real goal was to lead an organization, and when I started working toward that goal, then my corporate career started progressing.
Absolutely. And we said that in the
Eventually so.
beginning.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
said that in the beginning that most of the times that, and you just said that you were working out of your purpose. It's our passion that leads us to our purpose. But when we're working outside of our passion, trying to become something that we weren't called to, right?
That's
Then
right.
the waters get muddied. And we know that because we've all have
Yeah.
done that. So we have to go ahead and just dive into the uncertainty,
Yeah.
right? And just
That's
go
right.
in there prepared as much as you can go in there prepared. And so I'm
Yeah.
appreciating this conversation. So, with that said, listen, I have been in leadership a very, 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 very long time, and as you both have, and we said that 25 years and plus. We just gonna stop there, right? However, one time I had on somebody was reading my bio and I had, like 40 years and plus. And they like, can you just stop at 25 years and plus? I was like, okay.
Right. Don't use any more than 28 30.
That's what the plus is for. We're just gonna pick a
Right.
number and stay there.
Right, leaders. Right. Just use 20 or 25 years plus. So, but I read somewhere that it seems like right now in this climate, the higher one's desire to lead effectively, the lower the standards, right? And so, do you agree or disagree with that? Either one of you.
The higher the lead, the lower the
Ooh.
standard.
The higher the desire to lead effectively in this climate, the lower the standards have become.
Charlotte, I'm gonna let you take that one.
Yeah, and that's a good one, because in this environment that we in now,
Right.
with the pandemic and COVID, I actually think that leaders have a much higher standard now. You have to the lead. So I don't think the standards, and it varies. There's some people there, when I look across some of the CEOs, I think about different people, and I think about those that were not very good leaders, but I think about so many now that are good leaders, because even in my role, I cannot just, I have to be an empathetic leader right now.
Yes.
And my standards and my
Yes.
ethics have to be very high because of the environment we're in. The workforce is so limited. People are
Yes.
just not coming to jobs now for salaries.
Right.
Now they want to be respected,
That's
now they
right.
should have always been respected,
Correct.
but now they're looking for something different in a leader. They're looking for an empathetic leader who's going to think
Yes.
about their livelihood, who's going to make sure that they're concerned about their health, their
Yes.
welfare. So today's leaders are changing. That commander that used to be in the back room or upstairs in the big house looking down on the employees, that's not going to work anymore. So the
Absolutely.
standards are increasing now.
Yeah.
And so even when I look at the one of the things that I knew that if I ever took on this role, I was going to always have high ethics. I was never going to allow anybody to question my value system and my ethics. And so I think it is important for a leader to have very high standards
Yes.
and make sure that anyone that's working with them or under their leadership also has those standards
Yes. Yes.
and
Absolutely.
ensure those, especially in today's world, because it has changed so much, Victoria,
Yes.
and the
Absolutely.
environment is so different now that people can walk out of a job and go right someplace else and pick up another job or make a decision nowadays not to work at all.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's
they have
right.
Absolutely.
those choices. So their leader is going to have to be the example
That's right.
with very high standards to
That's right.
ensure the employees feel like their leaders care. Like I call all my employees for their birthdays.
Yeah.
I got it
That's
on
good.
my calendar, right? Where just the little things that matter.
That's
So I
right.
call someone today. I always call every employee I have just for their birthday to let them know I appreciate them. And
Yes.
so
I
the
think that's
standards
wonderful.
has to increase.
Yeah.
They have to increase.
I agree.
We don't
They,
I
want to
agree.
follow anybody with low standards.
That's right.
And
absolutely.
we don't have that option.
That's right.
Yeah, they have to increase. But
Yeah.
for some companies, you just mentioned why the standards are lowering because some of them still want to serve in this kind of like do what I say do or else kind of leadership model, which is so old and antiquated
Yeah,
anyway.
That's
it's
right.
antiquated.
That's right.
But true leadership about having influence. I don't know if you ever read Santa Claus Leadership, but that is a very thin book and it talks just about what you said, coming in and having a bag from the dollar store of Tootsie Rolls and
Yeah,
just putting them on someone's desk saying thinking
Yeah.
of you,
Sure.
or calling them right now in this virtual environment every just saying happy birthday because some people sometimes their own family forget, right?
yeah,
It's your
People
yeah,
want
birthday.
to feel
yeah,
valued. They
yeah,
want to
Absolutely.
feel
yeah.
appreciated.
Leadership
Absolutely.
is changing now. You know,
Oh
those
yeah.
companies who
It's
had
it
those lower standards,
right.
they're having to raise those standards now
That's right.
because if you want to keep employees,
To
you got to
survive.
compete
That's
now.
right.
Right, right, right. And so, yeah, so this whole, and I mean, and that's in every industry. And all
That's
Yeah.
three
right.
of us on here, we're
Yes.
going to end in this kind of in this last conversation, that in this environment, which is to me a spiritual environment anyway, right? And both of you have discovered that because both of you are ministers of the gospel, and Charlotte, I know I've been with you, and you've been licensed
Yeah.
and ordained and all this other stuff. So, but let me tell you this that you just said the other day, and it made me dance inside. That you discovered I'm a marketplace minister, right?
Yes.
And I think,
Yes.
Yeah.
and Tangela, you are too. And I
Yeah.
think people need to understand that ministry is not always from the pulpit,
That's
and
right.
being spiritual is not always having to be in church, but you're being spiritual and
Oh
doing
yeah.
ministry
Yeah.
right where
Absolutely.
you are leading,
Are
right?
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Wherever God has placed you
Absolutely.
in the marketplace to lead, lead. Any of y'all have anything as we get ready to close out about that? This whole notion of discovering that you are a marketplace deliverer of the spirit. And so
That's right.
Absolutely.
how have you lived into that? And we only have, I'll give you
Yeah.
like 30 seconds each.
Well, let me just say very quickly, I think God works in every environment all the time, everywhere.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
when I
Absolutely.
learned that, I did not have to speak from the pulpit. I have not spoken from the pulpit since because
Yeah.
now I'm leaving a legacy and I'm
Yeah.
leaving that hopefully in a God-like manner
Yeah.
in every
Yeah.
environment that I walk into.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I
is
agree with you
awesome.
on that. I agree with you on that for sure. Definitely the church is without walls, if you will. And I think I've just embraced that again, everything happens for a reason. So if my direct reports are not there by accident, the clients that I interface with are not there by accident. And again, if I believe leadership is influence, then I have to be able to influence my environment. And some people can influence them great ways and some can influence them the bad ways, but I am there to influence them in the best possible way and leave a space better than what I found it, whether it's a
That's
meeting,
right.
whether it's a call, whether it's with my direct reports. Nothing happens by accident. I truly believe that. And so if I embrace that, then how can I look at this situation and see how I can bring value to it
That's right.
overall?
That's
And
right.
so both of you talked about, and you just mentioned my word, bringing value, and being forever present and building a legacy. Those are kind of like buzzwords for me. And so doing that, I know I said the last question, but I want to introduce this. Are you both mentoring people? Are you
Oh
mentoring
yeah.
people? Because
Oh
every
Absolutely.
yeah.
great leader should be
Absolutely.
mentoring and being
Yeah.
mentored.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
And
I think
so
you
if
have to
you
be at all levels. You have to be mentored,
absolutely,
you have to mentor, and then you also have to have a peer group where you're bouncing and sharing support with each other. If you
absolutely.
got to hit a whole 360 approach if you want to develop as a leader.
That's right.
right.
And that's
So if you
marketplace leadership. That is marketplace ministry.
Right.
Is ensuring that you
absolutely.
lead leaders when you're long gone off in your
That's
career
right.
someplace else. You have left people better than where they started
That's
themselves
right.
with you.
Right.
That's right.
And because leadership is circular, right? And then, and so people that you're mentoring should be mentoring someone else. It's
That's right.
reproductive.
That's right.
Leadership is
It
reproductive.
is
It's not
absolutely.
stagnant,
Yes.
it's not static. And so I am so grateful that you have decided to be on Leadership on the Go. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being present with me this evening. We're going to do
Thank
probably
you.
a part two pretty soon because I know you guys got more to say to the people around leadership. But listen, thank you for starting on my premiere for
Thank you.
season 4. You have
Thank
opened up
you.
this show. And listen, we got a few announcements. Next week's show, our guest is going to be Kendall Brown. Yes, Kendall Brown. If y'all know Kendall Brown is, oh my goodness, he is a bad brother. And he's going to come to us and talk to us about leadership. This man went from the pulpit, from the academic as dean, to the pulpit as reverend and pastor, to now leaving the pulpit and evolving into his own company, his brand. He makes candles, y'all. And not
Wow.
only that, he has them in major stores, Marshalls, I don't know, Walmart, Target. He'll tell us where they are. And not only that, he was able to be on the same platform with Martha Stewart. And so we
Wow.
are
Right.
going to talk about
Wow.
entrepreneurship, and we're going to talk about leading and trending forward. We're going to continue
Yeah.
this conversation. So
Yeah.
all of our guests this season is going to be amazing guests. Thank you to Tangela Bond Jones. Thank you, Charlotte Shaw. Y'all can go to the Super Bowl now and watch. You can go to your parties. You can go for Valentine's and do what you do. And we appreciate you. I'm just going to ask that you stay on even after the show. And so thank you very much.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Take care and God bless you. Peace out.